Hey guys, nice to see you again. Let me just do some technical adjustment because Facebook is always going on friends only, and then I need to change it back to public post. So let me see what I can do. My guest is waiting anxiously. Okay, where is my post? Okay, hi, welcome to another episode of Insights with Dean Shans. So today is going to be another exciting interview. We're going to learn so much. It's all about how to bring out the best in others, be it in a low or high touch environment. Just in case you don't know what is low or high touch environment. So if your country is in lockdown, because I know there are people from Philippines, Malaysia, Pakistan, and India, and whatever else country that's tuning in. So if you are in lockdown, you are basically in a low touch environment because we are all doing things remotely. We are meeting people remotely. In a high touch environment is what we used to before the pandemic happened, right? So we meet people in face to face. We can touch people, we can say hi, we can shake their hands. So now I have someone very special who's going to tell us how to bring out the best in others in both environments. That's amazing. So let me bring my guest on. He's coming all the way from Pakistan, Lahore. Hello, Shazad Ishaq.
Hi, Dean. How are you? And a very warm welcome to you and your audience.
Hi, hi, hi. So, friends, let me share a bit of background about Sajak. Sajak is currently the division head in a privileged banking at MCB Bank Limited in Pakistan and based in Lahore. He has led teams of up to 1,600 people across three countries: Pakistan, Hungary, and Romania. Now, Shazad is known to be an appreciative leader who is able to bring out the best in his team, be it big or small. So, once again, thank you for being here, Shazad.
Thank
Okay,
you very much. Thanks for having me.
it's an honor. So, let's start with the sharing, right? Okay, so we all know that dealing with people can be one of the most challenging part of any job, and you have led teams, so such a big team in Pakistan, in Europe, and all that. And I want to know what is the secret of connecting and bringing out the best in others.
Well, Dean, that's really the crux of the matter, bringing the best out of others. If you want to run a business effectively, or you want to run a team very well. Now, I'm reminded of the founder of the Visa card company, D Hawk, and
Mm,
whom I read long time back in a memo to his employees. So he gives a two-sentence course of PhD in management, and he says,
mm,
uh, "Do unto others what your best manager
mm.
did to you when you loved it."
The best manager, right? Mm.
Yeah, and do not do unto others what your worst manager did to you and you abhorred him. So I think, I mean, it's close to what you call the golden rule, but managing people is so intuitive. You just do things that you love for yourself, you do unto them, and things
Mm.
that you think are will make you. If your manager did that to you unhappy, you just don't do it to them.
Do you know what? I just want to put in a comment here is that I did some research and I found out that in Singapore,
Yeah,
49% of employees leave their job not because the job is bad, but because their bosses are bad. So that's
yeah,
quite
yeah.
bad. And internationally, it's always like around 70 to 80% of people who leave their job. The reason is because of the bad boss. So what you're saying is so true. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very profound reality, and sooner we learn it, it's how good can we, get onto ourselves. And
Mm,
a lot of your topic, when I did thinking on what you were going to discuss with me, I was thinking that it's so much to do with your self mastery,
mm,
before you actually are able to lead others or lead others to their leadership. So
mm,
not to following. but their leadership.
Okay, now you have 2 decades of experience in this. Now, thinking back in over these 20 years, what was your biggest challenge in trying to nurture talents in your team?
Well, earlier in the conversation, you mentioned working across geographies.
Mm,
I think once you've worked or served in multiple countries, I had the privilege and honor to serve in quite a few countries of Central Europe and then extensively working across geographies in Asia Pacific closely with
mm,
teams and company in Singapore. I used to work for Citibank back then. And this cross cultural challenge and sensitivity to how to engage, interact, get the best out of others across the cultures, where people bring different backgrounds, different orientation, different
mm,
experiences, different exposure,
mm,
different
mm,
education, and how do you put all this together and you know drive drive results out of them. So I think that's the most surmounting challenge that I had to learn, and I won't say that I am just up there. I'm still learning. It still keeps me surprised. What works is your humility to know how much you don't know about the peoples of this world. And of course, what I learned working in Europe, there are there's no one way of doing things. There can be
mm,
plenty and there can be
mm,
many. And if you don't listen well, if you don't pay heed to how people are doing things in different geographies,
mm,
you can miss out on so much. But if you do, there's a lot to learn and gain. So this
mm,
listening, I say, is very important, leading to um, empathy, a genuine concern for
mm,
others.
mm, mm,
That's where you tend to understand the cross-cultural orientation, and I think that's something we all need to. Even living in the same country, you
mm.
work with uh, a lot of different backgrounds,
That's
races,
right.
creeds. Yeah,
So I like the fact that you said you seem to say that culture is has a huge influence in how we connect with others, right? And we need to
that's right.
deal with a lot of unspoken rules because culture, there's no guidebook on culture because it's always changing, and there's a lot of history and things into culture. So it is easy when we're working with our own culture, right? It's
That's correct.
easier,
That's
but
correct.
when we work in a different culture or someone from a different culture, misinterpretation is very common. So you
That's correct.
were a leader at Citibank Europe, Hungary for 15 years. Uh, you have worked with different cultures. So can you share with us how you overcome the cultural barriers? What were your thought process? What values did you bring into the process? Go ahead.
Well, I'll answer it at three levels. So I'm talking of sometime in the first quarter of 2009, 11 years back, and there was this colleague of mine, a Hungarian product manager, and she just won't do what I want her to do. And a lot of work, she was product manager for technology transformation
Mm-hmm.
back then. And a lot of work that I had to do with technology transformation. So lo and behold, I went to my general manager for the business group, and I said, look, she doesn't listen to me. She doesn't want to help me. She thinks that I'm an Asian or whatever. And he goes like, why don't you take her out for a quick lunch? Just send her a
Mm.
calendar invite and say that you want to have a chat with her around the lunchtime. And I said, you know what? She would think I'm giving her a line, let alone that you want me to be friends with her and get work out of her. And he said, are you crazy? I said, in my country, it means that we are inviting somebody. And he said, no, sorry, it's a working lunch. You talk it out. And lo and
Ah.
behold, I sent her an invite. She instantly accepted. We sat down over lunch. I said, you don't do things that I want to, the direction I want to take the company. And she said, you are so unempathetic. You don't understand my problems. I'm working on 10 projects. We just connected, and since we've been great friends. So
Oh, that's so
that's
nice.
one.
Yeah.
I mean, again, understanding the nuances and sensitivity. Now that's one thing. The other thing is that when I was working there, I also knew that I represented a nation state, a geographical culture,
Mm.
and I represented a certain background, being a South Asian. So, what kind of messages do I want to give to my
That's very
colleagues? And
interesting. It's like because you are the only Pakistani probably working there. So whatever you
yeah,
do, whatever you say, how you are, tends to represent all of Pakistani, right? Which is not fair, but
that's
that's how
absolutely
we tend to think, right? Yeah.
how the world works.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that actually. So, will I be perceived as a trustworthy person?
Mm.
Do I walk my talk? Do I do what
Mm.
I say? So I'm reminded of again Stephen Covey. This trust is composite. It doesn't consist of one thing. So how are you authentic? How do you do things that you say you'll do? How do you connect with others? And how do they trust you for your competence? Are you well prepared? So what it meant was, and my early learning, that for any meeting or anything, I had to be extremely well prepared on the discussion. And the last thing, Dean, just a moment, was that I learned that Hungarians actually were not very fond of English language. So
Oh.
I started learning their language. I speak Hungarian, basic one, the world just changed because they deeply appreciated somebody learning. It's the most after Cantonese and Mandarin. It's the most difficult language for native English
Mm.
speakers to learn. So three levels of connecting: personal level,
That's
who you
no
are level,
who
and
you are.
connecting with the culture through cultural icons like language and like
Mm.
being sensitive to their rituals and stuff. So these are three things that I can tell. And if anybody gets to conscientiously work on them, I think you make a lot of headway.
That's great. This is really good advice. Uh, Wait, so now we are living in a low touch environment. A lot of us, I don't know, Pakistan, is it still on lockdown or is it already opening up?
Well, we call it smart lockdown, but one
Okay.
form or the other exists. Yeah, I mean, it's a different world.
So basically, it's
And
restricted movement, right? Restricted movement.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right.
So,
Yeah,
and we don't get to meet people face to face, even for business
that's
meetings
right.
that much, right? So it is
That's
a
right.
low touch environment there also.
Right,
So
right.
remote meeting are very efficient. We all know that because we don't have to go places. But some element of the human connection seems to be lost because of the medium itself. It's just different, right? I mean, I've been in so many Zoom meetings, and sometimes after just one meeting, and I'm so drained. I don't know why. There must be some psychological reason why. If I was in that place having a face to face meeting with someone 1 hour, I may be energized, but this is completely different. So, what should we do differently to make up for this difference in the low touch environment?
Again, it begins with the understanding self and self mastery.
Mm,
What changes is that you need to be generally more authentic. You need to be more
mm,
trusted for what you're
mm,
saying. I'll use the word transparency. What
mm,
low touch environments and virtual environments require is uh, very clear agreement on the purpose, very clear agreement on follow up, very clear agreement on deadlines,
mm,
and and you know it needs to be encapsulated or topped up by what you call empathy or concern for others, that they are working under special conditions too. So they could be working from home, they could be
mm,
working under restricted hours, with family things to do and others.
mm,
So how do you build your effectiveness around those drivers, that you understand that somebody could be disturbed by their kids or others and all those things? So I would say transparency number one and empathy number two. Um, it's you just have to 10x them. You just have to
okay.
understand, and then again, very very clear agreements. The last point here I would say is it requires creative imagination, and you
Mm,
encourage others, because historically one would do virtual teams or international dial-up kind of settings when you required certain expertise. Today you do them to run the business as usual.
yeah.
So that actually requires that all those things we've discussed need to be called into question. You just have to be more authentic self, and
Mm,
you
mm,
know
mm.
what, it takes a lot of personal management management of calendar, and having those very clear. Uh, Remember, I talked to you about adaptive communication, from strong
Yeah.
communication to adaptive communication. How do you use different tools? Because others are
Mm,
also getting tired out of long Zoom calls,
yeah.
longish, staying on the headsets and stuff like that. So how do you agree on what kind of communication suits them?
Mm.
And all these questions need to come into play. They need to be asked. They need to be drawn clearly.
So we
In
need to, the team need to decide, right? What is a good
Yeah,
format? What is the good delivery? And I like the fact that you mentioned about authenticity. And I want to make a point here is that in a lot of Zoom meetings, I've come to realize that to be your authentic self, you actually need to switch on the camera, the video camera, because if you're hiding behind a picture, somehow it seems like you are not really there. Correct or not? Would you
yeah,
agree
that's
with
very
me?
true.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Absolutely.
friends, think about this for a while. I mean, you may be concerned about how you look on the camera, but I think if it's a work discussion, people will be more concerned about the work and the topic rather than how you look. So, fine to have virtual backgrounds, but actually to have the video on is a big thing, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah,
shows
yeah.
that you are there and you're paying attention. Now, the second thing I want to ask you, Sajat, is this. Um, you said we need to have empathy and think about what the team is going through. But some of us, just due to our character, our nature, we are very, very task oriented. So, how can we start to think about empathy for people who are very task oriented? How can they remind themselves? What can they say to themselves so that they become a more empathetic person? Any ideas on that?
Yes, I think we just brought into discussion adaptive communication, and
Mm,
just having those. I call them win-win performance agreements. And by the way, a lot of what I say has been borrowed from some of the world's best sources.
of course,
And
yeah.
what that means is performance agreements, that you set the right expectations with each other. So what this medium of work demands is setting and clarifying expectations upfront.
Mm,
And I think it goes a very long way, because next time you are following up on an assignment. Still another thing is something again I learned in Europe. So I went to my manager one time and I asked him that, some of my colleagues are just not there, because so I'm being empathetic, I'm being kind with them, and I give them a lot of guidance and I
mm.
listen to them. What am I missing? And he said that, how much have you been showing to them what's in it for them? What's in it for them?
What's in
Right?
it for that?
Yeah, I mean, where are you taking them? Who will they become? And have you discussed these notions with them? Because you are a foreigner, you are an outsider. Now, in environments like these, that really matters. The performance agreement, which also does not just say that, we need to go from point X to Y, we need sales of X hundred thousand
Mm,
dollars, but what's in it for them, not just financially, but in terms of career progression, in terms of learning, in terms of challenge.
mm. You made a very good point. So uh, you seem to have a lot of successes in bringing out the talents in others. Now, has there ever been a point where, despite your best effort, it didn't work? And I will be very curious to know what went wrong and what can we now from learning can what can we learn from you?
Dean, two things in here. That's a very very good discussion point and a question.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, there's a age-old saying: when the disciple or student is ready, the teacher will appear. So it depends how much is somebody that you are mentoring is. Are they exploiting you? Do they want to use you as a leader? Do they want you to just do they just want to buy your specialization?
Mm,
Or it's a very bilateral arrangement with them? That really determines, because at times where I flunked is because perhaps I wasn't too good, or the other party had more material expectations rather than
mm,
developmental expectations. So when I got my mentoring back in 2005, this is 15 years back, uh, the guy just told me, he said, I won't help aid your career. but I'll do a lot of what if scenarios with you. So that's where I personally made mistakes along the way, picking up people where probably they weren't too prepared. On my own part, where I've made mistakes with people is in the early part of my desire to excel others. I would want to take a lot of time to talk out my stuff. Look, have you
mm.
thought about it? Are you going to do that? Asking, doing most of the talking. So as I age and I get older,
And
it's not
become
so much.
wiser, right?
I'm not sure, but I ask more questions,
Yeah.
and I ask more calibrated questions. So recently, I was involved in interviewing um, the priority banking sales and contact center agents and sales agents, and I was asking questions like, what would you tell to your 3 years younger self into this role? What three things would you do differently? And just asking them questions that help them explore where they need to go and how they get there themselves. So the more you cover the ground on this journey, the more you
Mm.
become curious, inquisitive, and listening.
That's great. Great tips
I hope
for
I've
us.
answered you.
You have, because it's something to think for all those of us who are working on becoming better leaders, better managers, right? Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So there is another type of people who are always out to make someone better.
Right.
not
Right.
because not because of they are responsible for the other person, but it's just their maybe habit, or is it character, I don't know, but they're always out to help people become better, so to say. So this may not be a good thing, right? So from if we are one of them, like how can we gauge when someone needs to be supported to bring out the best in them, and when they should just be left alone? What's your take on this?
Well, I think it takes periodic pulse check. It takes that you get onto dialogues periodically at certain frequencies. Look, how are you doing? I mean, one famous, not famous, but one common question that I ask my colleagues, I've been doing this for a couple of years now, like 5 years, I would say, is, look, what can I do for you to speed up your results? Now, these are very easy questions, and
Mm,
these are very easy things. I'm not sure how many of us are really introspective
mm,
as a business leader, and looking at themselves where they, because you never know if you could be the part of the problem. So the
mm,
person on the other side is giving their best shot. That's one whole discussion. The other thing is
mm,
that the individuals actually need to be made account for results. So the process which I've learned is that occasionally you sit down, you review the outcomes which have already happened, you account for the results which have been
mm,
delivered, and then you are not looking for excuses. Then you are then you're not looking for excuses.
mhm,
You are not looking for reasons. You're looking
mm,
for what you call intuitive forecasts. What
mm,
are three things that we'll do differently? How will we do them? And somebody, a brilliant colleague, once told me that lots of us don't flip on the ideas and how to be more effective. We flip
mm,
on the how to steps. What are the three steps
mm,
that take me to the place where I want to go? So
mm,
it's a lot of engagement with the colleagues and helping them discover themselves. And
mm, mm, mm.
it's a perpetual constant state of mind or state of action, action. Yeah.
Okay, awesome point. Okay, friends, I just want to tell you, I just realized something, that your comments on the Facebook is not coming out on my platform. So I don't know how to post it there. So let's see. Okay, I'll just go to my own Facebook and say, okay, Pamela Wigglesworth had a question. With so many people working remotely, how do you bring the best out of people when you can be in the same room? Sajad, did we touch on this? I think we did, right? A bit.
Well, we did. I think My favorite, and I can't go wrong with this, or if you were to give me several lives, I would say this same thing: ask the right questions. So I remember, many years back, I was very fond of reading Peter Drucker, the founder of modern
Mm,
management, and he distinguished between the management and leadership. And he said, if management is doing things the right way,
mm,
leadership is about selecting the right things. How do you
mm.
select? So I argue, select the right questions. Uh, don't actually try to snub too much, number one. Number two, don't try to be sarcastic too much.
That's
Ask,
so true. Yes, yeah.
ask straight questions. It's to do with that same old thing of cultural sensitivity.
Mm,
And listen, and listen not to respond, listen to understand. And
mm,
it's these practices that you bring out your authentic self. And,
mm.
being in the same room, one thing, Dean, we just cannot go wrong about is preparation. I see business
Yes.
leaders, I see myself entering into conversations, hustling for 5 minutes before the meeting, and just seeing what are we going to ask, what are we going to do, how are we going to challenge the other party, rather
Mm.
than doing a structured, methodical preparation. So much to do with it. So I think asking the right questions, being prepared yourself, and letting others see a sense of purpose, that there's an outcome. I mean,
I like
we
the
have,
fact that, yeah, I like the fact that you said you're asking the right question. Okay, so
yeah,
can I
yeah.
just push you a little bit more on that? What is the
Sure.
right question? Because we may not know what's the right question. So do you have like a guideline or a checklist on how do I know that I'm asking the right questions?
Dean, I think it's to do with a couple of things. Number one, what is the outcome you want to achieve out of the conversation, discussion, or the review? Where do you want to go? And
Mm,
then seeking out options. I'll give you an example. When I returned to Pakistan, and I would come across a lot of colleagues, so large responsibility, 1,600 people. I was internally scared that I'll fail myself.
mm,
One thing that my team actually disliked me a little bit about was asking them to, okay, come and talk to me, present to me your thought process on moving your business arm or functional division, operational division forward for next 1 to 2 or 3 years. How will you do it? What are things that you'll do? And they just said that, let us run either BAU, business as usual, allow us to don't eat up our time in these long-winded conversations, number one. And number two, Shazad, just tell us what you want us to do and we'll do it. So if I
ah,
would say that, look, a certain process which takes 1 week needs to be done in 24 hours, would be done. But if I were to say how to adapt that process to digital transformation, how would you pick up the steps from putting data on retrievable systems, then using data to create online experience, then smoothing the user experience? Well, my friend, it could take 3 months without an answer. So, I mean, what it takes is, again, getting people into the right frame of mind and giving this. So I would tell them, finally, I would tell them, come to me, come with 5 options how to
mm,
transform this process. Tell me which one is the best way, and we'll discuss that. If that's it, we'll just do it. And you own it, you are responsible. And you are identified as a successful person. Another thing that I picked up was
mhm,
that you give responsibilities to individuals. Of course, even if they're working with collaborative teams and they're collaborating, the accountability, the clearer, the singular, the better the outcome. The
mm,
more disparate, distributed, okay, collaboration, the more you are at a loss asking people, how did you get it done? What needs, why did you not do it? So
mm,
giving it to them, holding them answerable, and then of course, aiding them to your best to get things done. You act as, like we talked, you act as a catalyst. You act as a,
mm,
I mean, I like being a bystander. And many a times people come back and say, we digitally transformed. Yes, you did. No mentions of all those excruciating conversations. Forget them. It's about their success, it's about their effectiveness, it's about their objectives in life. And that's where Like Tom Peters say, you're not creating followers, you're delivering other leaders.
Awesome. So, what I hear you say is that even though we may not know the right question, but when we ask, we need to see how your team is reflecting upon that question. So, if they say, stop asking me all this question, then you stop asking questions, right? And let them do the job. Is that what you're saying, right?
Well, I can be little troublesome and painstakingly getting it done, because there are times where so imagine telling a business graduate with an experience of 5 years
Mm,
that here's a project plan that you put together on PowerPoint or on a paper. Can you handwrite it to me on one page? And I don't have a better way of getting it clearer in their mind on what they want to execute, what their priorities should be, and they never forget. I mean, it can be in certain cultures considered disrespectful, but
mm.
there's no way of etching it in a person's mind than to ask them to write it down in their own handwriting and bring it to you.
So, why the handwriting, pen on
Yeah,
paper? Why is it so important for you? What does it
it's
say?
it's it's very powerful when you just cannot write with your hand without having your brain, your eyes, your visual senses, your the entire
Everything,
suite.
right? It's all engaged, right?
It's all engaged, it's all absorbing. And that famous axiom, I hear, I forget, I see, I remember, I
Mm,
do, I understand.
awesome. I believe in that pen on paper, the power of it, right? Okay, one last question. So, in our previous conversation, you also said that, there's a lot of personal values that would work in bringing out the best in others. And I remember you mentioning that that you were taught patience and forgiveness are essential values in this process.
Yeah.
So, what's your take on this? How does patience and forgiveness come into the process of bringing out the best in others?
So, in the gig economy of today, impacted by COVID 19, and the sharing economy of today, in the information economy of today, people want it here and now. And the wisdom that I know tells me you get the chicken out of egg by hatching the egg, not by smashing the egg. So, you just
I
have
like
to
that.
wait it
I
out.
like the analogy. Yeah. So you want the chicken, you have to incubate the egg and not just break it, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So at times, to my young colleagues, whose talent, whose drive, and whose energy I'm just in love with, because the right people, I mean, they're like my young mentors. In fact, I have a formal mentor, and I've got some very, very young people telling me what should I do next. So at one
Mm,
point, when I was in a career transition mode, I summoned three of my youngest colleagues, the brightest, and I said, my next role will come through you. So
mm,
please work with me, do the homework, and let me know who do you think I should be. I've done my homework, I do my prep, but
mm.
can you do that strategic thinking for me, peeking into the future? And that's one reason that I asked one of the youngest business graduates to put together a digital transformation strategy for you. It's just like Howard Schultz at Starbucks putting teenagers into Starbucks' board of directors, at least
Oh,
two
wow.
teenagers, so
Mm,
that they think from a teenager's mind. Only a woman can think from a woman's mind. And
absolutely.
I'm just a great believer in having a lot of women. And that's a stereotype, by the way, I'm changing in my home country, by increasing the size of gender representation, women population. So it's just a drift in conversation. But how do you harness the energies available in the young graduates, women, and some of the special segments of the population? I think
Mm,
it plays so much role in creating the effectiveness and delivering. And you talked about values. So connecting all this, doing this takes humility. It takes a
ab-
lot of humility.
mm.
Now I'm reminded of Dr. Kenneth Blanchard, author of One Minute Manager. I heard him say, people with humility don't think less of themselves. They only think of themselves less.
That's you know what? this platform, there's some technical issues. If not, I would have written it and put it on the video, but unfortunately, don't know what's happening. Friends, if you're listening, I see all your comments on my Facebook, but I can't put it on the screen because I don't know what's going on. Okay, well, it happens. Thank you so much, Azad. Before we end, I did some research before, and I came across uh, these points. They said the 5 winning behavior of good leaders. Seems like you have all of them. Okay, let me read it out to you. They're energizing, they connect and stabilize, they serve and grow, they stay grounded and humble, they understand that people follow them not for their job title but for their inherent capabilities. This is something all leaders need to know. And lastly, they step up by not blaming others but taking action and accountability. Shazad,
Well said. Well
subscribe.
said.
And friends, if you're a leader, if you're going to be a leader, you want to be a leader, you're a manager now, and all these 5 points and everything that Shazad said is so powerful. I think I need to review this video and reflect it upon myself also. So thank you, Shazad, one more time
Thank you
for
for having me. I'm deeply
all the
touched, and I hope if we are able to convert a single person into a more effective leader, professional, then you and I have done our job.
Absolutely. And on that note, so friends, thank you. Please, if you find this useful, share it on your timeline, share it in a message to people that would find all this information useful. So with that, have a good day ahead and goodbye.
Goodbye.